So, welcome back to Contemporary Business. I'm Ivor Blumenthal. Yesterday, I spoke about AfriForum. I spoke about solidarity and what they're doing to really take the fight of the Afrikaner, the white Afrikaner community global. And in fact, something that the ANC did prior to 1994, which got them to 1994, which was to create a national global campaign around the National Party and the ills and evils of apartheid, to the extent that the global community virtually caused a shutdown here in South Africa. And so by 1994, facilitated at least a transition. So what is it that AfriForum and Solidarity are doing any different than what the ANC laid the groundwork for? Which is, if the ANC had no joy whatsoever with the Nationalist Party, they had no recourse but to go overseas and to try and get the pressure put on the National Party that way. So why is it any different for AfriForum and Solidarity to now be doing the same thing? It boggles the imagination to think that the ANC could draw a distinction between the one or the other. They laid the groundwork. Ever heard of Dr. Mario Ambrosini, an Italian-born South African politico, constitutional brain box? I had a lot of time for the guy. He died in 2014. Now, in his book, The Prince and I, he relays a conversation he had in the early 1990s chatting to our now president, Cyril Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa, in a moment of absolutely brutal honesty, laid out the ANC's grand plan, a plan to kneecap white dominance in South Africa, as was his right. Strategically, he could do whatever he needed to do to effect change. But he tells Ambrosini, it's like boiling a frog alive. You crank the heat up very, very slowly so that the cold-blooded frog doesn't realize what's happening until it's too late, until he's cooked. So chuck it in hot water, though, and the frog will jump out because it'll be too hot for him, and he'll know that it's going to hurt him. The black majority, after transition in 1994, would set about stealing wealth, land, power, and dignity from the white community bit by bit, imperceptibly at first, so that there was no resistance, nothing too flashy to spark a scrap, until the white community stripped bare. No rebellion, no fuss. Now a 30-year slow roast to flip the script without the white community in South Africa reacting or even really acknowledging that they're being taken to the cleaners. And here we are in 2025 with AfriForum screaming that the pot is bubbling over. Makes you wonder, were these apologists, the Max du Preez of this world, the Louis van Reyns of this world, were they napping? Are they now napping while that temperature is really at boiling point? Elon Musk, our exiled tycoon, nailed it on his own platform, X, when he wrote this: the ANC is a one-party state in a democratic mask. Afrikaners are smart to scream abroad because there's no joy at home. And I think he's right. He's damn right. When the system is deaf, you don't whisper, you roar where they will hear you. Then there is the alt-right whinge of the apologists. The claims that AfriForum has hobnobbed with Carlson, with Bolton, with Trump, with Musk. And these apologists are terrified about what that will look like for the white Afrikaans community in South Africa. AfriForum and Solidarity hobnobbing with nut jobs. And that's fair, by the way. But this is not about ideology. It's squarely about leverage. Back to X, at SARS Real Talk. If the ANC can bunk up with Iran and Russia, then why can't we call in the Yanks? It's a dirty game. Apologists want us to be pure. I, quite frankly, want us to be alive. And the economy, well, Trump's cuts, the AGOA threats, they warn that America will kneecap us all. And in fact, the cuts, specifically the US aid cuts, have begun to do that. They've begun to kneecap South Africa. And that kneecapping will include everybody, including white Afrikaners and the white community in general. It stings. But this mess is not AfriForum's fault. The ANC has been screwing its friends in the axis of evil for years. And in that respect, it has been absolutely alienating any country that has been in alliance with South Africa for decades, but is not in that axis of evil. Now suddenly, the ANC are hurting at the prospect of what their affinity with Iran and Russia and the axis of evil is going to do to the people of this country. They should have thought about that before they pissed America off and before they took on their true and real allies that they've always depended upon and that they've gone cap in hand to for funding into South Africa. You don't bite the hand that feeds you on such a public platform, in such a public way, and then complain once you've done it. Once you've said they should leave you alone and take care of their own problems back in the USA, you don't then complain that they're not picking up the phone and talking to you and wanting to meet with you. At Afrikaner Voice on X says this: sanctions hurt, but living under a regime that hates you and will do everything to annihilate you hurts much more. Don't blame the rebels that are putting their hand up in the global context and saying, we need help. We need you to understand what human rights violations means now, today in South Africa. We need you to understand the decimation of white identity and white Afrikaner pride when, as South African citizens, we've got every right to assert those things. So AfriForum says there are 60 brutal, racially inspired farm murders a year. The apologists cite SAP's figures. Those numbers are rubbish. If you compare them to the fact that there are 7,000 murders in South Africa every year, 60 is it's a minuscule, unimportant event. It's overhyped. And I say rubbish. First of all, SAP's figures are never going to be accurate because of underreporting in South Africa, because people who are victims of a crime, 9 times out of 10 will not come to SAPS. They don't trust SAPS. SAPS has no integrity as far as the common South African citizen is concerned. Cops, even if they register a case, will dodge the scene, and the savagery screams intent when you start investigating what those 60 farm murders look like. At Rural Rebel, with 50,000 followers on X, rages, tied up, burnt alive, kids watching. Tell me that's not targeted against the white Afrikaner nation. It's not random. It's a bloody message. What I say to AfriForum and Solidarity is this: keep Washington's eye on South Africa. Leverage is life. Anywhere you can find it, any way you can make it happen. Collectively, we are not victims or villains. We are players in a game that we didn't choose to have to play, but we find ourselves in. Finally, going back to X, at Boerblo got it when he wrote this: we're warriors. Time to act like it. Let's lead, not bleed. Thank you for tuning in to Contemporary Business.